Day 714 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is another quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at the Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 391,000 military personnel losses. Then as for the hardware losses, 7 tanks, 22 APVs and 20 artillery. Then we'll head across to the map and start out in Russia again as another substation caught fire, this time at Volokhanovka in the Belgorod Oblast, and reportedly due to a Ukrainian UAV. Then in terms of strikes on Russian oil refineries, well, none today, but there's only so many to destroy. Now, this footage is a previous video from one of a finite amount of 32 refineries in Russia, processing the majority of their petroleum products. And it's potentially an underrated occurrence, as recent drone attacks on over half a dozen facilities have highlighted gaping wide air defense security weaknesses. And despite Russia's sincerest attempts to resolve this weakness, the attacks have disrupted fuel production, causing domestic prices to rise and exports of gasoline and diesel to fall significantly. In fact, one drone attack alone reduced gasoline production by an amount of about 4%, with overall nationwide production reduced by about 30% in the last few months. Although this figure is somewhat attributable to other nations, such as India, seeking alternative international suppliers such as Saudi Arabia. But even still, these figures are likely to continue to devolve into a severe state of economic hardship for the country that is affectionately referred to as the gas station with nukes. Then we'll head into Ukraine's north in Kharkiv. So Russian troops are once again attempting to fight their way towards Sinkivka through the forest area northwest, where those attacks were previously repulsed several times. And so fights are particularly aggressive here at the moment, but no changes in military positions have been observed. Then moving a bit further south, as Russia also conducted a large mechanized attack at Bilarivka, reportedly with the loss of 20 heavy pieces of equipment. Now initially, Russia took into newly captured positions, of which it later had to forfeit with these latest events. Or more simply put, a forward rush that failed to yield any results and instead lose hardware in the process. Sound familiar? Well, that's because it is. Typically, Russia performs their armored rushes to no success, then following that, tries their hand at infantry assaults, which conversely offers no protection from Ukrainian fire. Then we'll head down to Avdiivka, which has almost been a textbook example of what I've just mentioned above, albeit on a much larger scale. As Russian forces have been starting with wave after wave of armored assaults, then end up making infantry-only engagements in an attempt to squeeze out additional land gains. And therefore, that's what they did in the very last day, making some very marginal yet very costly gains just south of Stepova, as they are clearly attempting to solidify or make new gains all the way up to the railway line and further below. So an ongoing meat grinder, and I do mean meat grinder, for a location that's often referred to as the Russian Avdiivka debacle, which has been more costly for Russia in pretty much every single metric, from losses in the form of artillery, to vehicles, to tanks, to infantry. Then moving across the map in the south, actually in the Zaporizhia south, so specifically at the Robotyne front, as an assaulting Russian T-80 BVM variant, so a later upgraded model, ran over a Ukrainian landmine, followed by Ukrainian artillery fire concentration to ensure the destruction of that tank. Then, to the west in Krinky of the Kherson Oblast, we saw the AFU raise a flag close to the outer perimeter of their area of control in the settlement. And flags are a funny thing in a war zone. They do nothing and yet they do everything, as it includes the effect of a psychological impact on the enemy, and conversely as a morale boosting effect for the flag raising army as well. Then, just briefly, we'll move down to Crimea for a moment as we came across some newly released footage of a pair of Ukrainian Storm Shadows or Scalp LGs, these missiles passing directly over a Russian air defense battery in western Crimea as they headed towards the Belbek airfield on January 31st. With the supposedly advanced Russian air defense systems just hanging back, forcing us to ask the question once again, what air defense doing, Russia? Then moving across to some quick news today. So starting off, seemingly missing Russian General Gerasimov has had recent new rumors surrounding his whereabouts, with a recent one stating that the Deputy Minister of Defense himself for Russia has been sighted at the Swiss embassy within the Turkish capital of Ankara, seeking asylum. And although I'm skeptical of news like this, further confirmations are indeed required, could you imagine the ramifications of such an event? The amount of pure dirt that would be spilt on the complete ineptitude of Putin and the Russian MOD. As obviously some sort of a deal would be made in such an attempt like that to seek asylum. And I would be having a field day with that information, so please let that one be true. Then in some other news, so in a recent announcement, Ukrainian President Zelensky has launched a separate branch of Ukraine's armed forces dedicated to drones. Now, unveiled just yesterday, this move aims to boost drone use in warfare by creating specialized units, ramping up training, and enhancing drone development and production. And so the new unmanned systems forces will deploy drones and robotic technology in air, sea, and land operations to improve military effectiveness, with a particular focus on the Black Sea region. And this initiative is in fact designed as a key part of Ukraine's existing and upcoming 2024 military strategy. Then moving across to some similar news, Turkish defense firm Baykar has begun construction of a new factory near Kyiv, which will create jobs for approximately 500 individuals. And the facility will produce either TB2 and or TB3 drone models, according to various sources. Then moving across to a Russian hardware news update, in a manner of speaking, as the hacker group named Prana Network exposed a deal between Iran and Russia for producing the Shahed 136 attack drones, showing how Russia pays Iran often in gold for these drones. And so the documents found on the email servers of the IRGC Sahara Thunder, an Iranian company, detailed the negotiations and prices for these drones. Specifically, the cost for Russia to purchase the drones was much higher than expected. As many reported previously, the Shahed drones to only cost about $25,000 per unit. However, instead, prices ranged from $193,000 to $290,000 per drone, depending on the quantity ordered, with a total deal worth about $1.75 billion, including technology and software transfers. Which means, on average, Russia was paying about $250k per drone, as opposed to a measly $25k each. And with claims of upwards of a 80% interception rate for these drones from the Ukrainian air defenses, means that 1 in 5 has been effective only. Therefore, each hit cost Russia well over $1 million for these low-yield mopeds on wings. Which therefore means the Japard's air defense systems, with their cheaper ammunition, which saw great success in neutralizing these drones, makes for an asymmetrical offensive-defensive cost in Ukraine's favor, which is something that we previously had not expected. Then in some other news, so Russian company Yandex, known as Russia's Google, has sold its operations in Russia in a landmark move valued at $5.2 billion amid the ongoing geopolitical tensions following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This strategic exit includes the sale of its news service, search engine, and other key business components, marking a significant shift for the tech giant as it aims to mitigate risks and focus on expanding its global presence outside the politically and economically volatile Russian market. Now, most of Yandex's business was indeed within Russia, but if you're a billion-dollar tech empire with aspirations to go global, as they say, then just like in this instance, you can choose the Russian market or the rest of the global market. Not a difficult choice. Then moving across to a quick funny to round it all off today, guys. More of a funny adjacent segment, as there soon may be quite the number of funnies coming out as a result of Putin, who is soon to be interviewed by former US news anchor Tucker Carlson. Now, Tucker Carlson has been criticized quite a bit online already for this upcoming interview with the Russian Tsar, but that's not what really concerns me whatsoever. Because political leanings aside, whatever comes out of Putin's mouth from a Western-facing interview of this caliber is extremely likely to contain a whole bunch of mental gymnastics performed by Putin, and possibly to levels we've not even seen before. So either way, I'm certainly looking forward to an event like this. And whatever Putin says will be triple fact-checked and possibly poked fun at. Meaning that I don't see any event whereby Putin gets any redemption from an interview like this. And likely instead will go to just re-solidify international perceptions of the Presitator. And the reason why I see a high likelihood of hilarity for this upcoming event is because laughable events have already taken place in relation to this event. For instance, Russian state media, when announcing Carlson's arrival in town, they were stating the most bizarre narratives on how Carlson was treated to modern luxuries in Russia, such as how he went to a good restaurant, and not very descriptive there, and also how he was able to charge his phone via USB and get Wi-Fi on some sort of unnamed ground-based transport. And to double down, they even went on to say that US citizens cannot even dream of such wonders of civilization. Are these guys for real? I mean, seriously. So the interview hasn't even started yet, and the Russian comedy acts are already in town. Just delightful. So that will be it for today, guys. Still dealing with some of those technical issues, so a few shorter videos this week, but we'll see how we go. Thanks again for watching and liking and supporting, commenting, all of the above and so much more. And I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.